Good morning. Welcome to Hindu News for KPIAS 6th December 2022. Today is death anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He is one of the famous and most respected person in Indian history. He is a chief architect of Indian Constitution. He campaigned against social discrimination towards the untouchables or Dalits. During the time of independence, he established several forums, namely Bahishkrit Bharat Sabha, to promote education and economic empowerment of untouchables. He also founded Independent Labour Party, Scheduled Caste Federation in the later time. He became famous after Mahat Satyagraha or Chowdar Thale Satyagraha to fight against the discrimination towards the untouchables and to fight for the rights of the untouchables. He also invited to testify before the South Borough Committee, which was preparing the 1919 Morley-Montagu reforms. And he is the first person who argued for separate electorate for the and reservations for the untouchables. And he also led Kalaram Temple movement and he signed the famous Pune Pact. He was the chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee and he also resigned from the Parliament in 1951 over the disagreement over Hindu Code Bill. We have to understand, he wrote several books. The famous one is Annihilation of Caste and Buddha and his Dhamma. And it is also interesting that he maintained several newspapers like Bahishkrit Bharat, Samata, Equality, Janata, among others. So this is a brief about B.R. Ambedkar role during the freedom struggle. If time comes, we will discuss about his contributions toward the constitution in separate session. Next, first article talks about DMK seeks review of Supreme Court verdict on 10% of EWS quota. It is well-known fact that Indian Constitution allows judicial review. In USA Constitution, it was evolved after the famous judgment in United States Supreme Court. John Marshall, the fourth CJI in Marbury vs. Madison case, the concept of judicial review was put forward in USA. Fortunately, Indian Constitution placed judicial review in several articles. Article 13 of Indian Constitution stated that any law violating fundamental rights can be declared as null and void. In addition to that, Article 136 and 137, particularly 136 talks about special leave petition in which Supreme Court can examine any law, decree or orders of the subordinate courts or high courts. 137 talks about judicial review allowed for the Supreme Court judgment itself. On that basis, now we are going to witness Tamil Nadu government going for review petition. Let us wait and watch for the next developments. Next article talks about a case for change. Iran must choose reforms or risk blowback from the protesters. This is very interesting article. Yesterday we witnessed a lead article in the Hindu newspaper stating that Iran is going to shut its moral policing. Then what is the most important elements we have to understand? Iran facing protest from last few months because of hijab issue. It is well known fact that Mahsa Amini, a person who belongs to Kurdist party, she was harassed and she was killed in the custody itself. And this was done by a moral policing in the name of Gast-e-Irshad or guidance patrol. This Gast-e-Irshad or guidance patrol are the people who will try to maintain the dress code which is based on the Islamic order. And we witnessed that hundreds of people protested against this Gast-e-Irshad or guidance police or moral policing from last September onwards. So on that note, from the foreign pressure or you can say from the domestic pressure, Iran now shut down its moral policing. This is an important element in the Iran developments because Iran is under huge pressure from the Western countries, particularly from the USA, when USA announced its sanctions under the name of Countering America's Advisories Through Sanctions Act, CAATSA. So let us wait and watch for the next developments in Iran, but just have an idea about these developments. Next article talks about climate talks as short-changing international law. So this article explains about several developments and observations, but most important observations are, it is well-known fact that climate change negotiations are hot of the debate ever since 1972 Stockholm UN conference. Later then, we are witnessing several climate negotiations, and the path-breaking was Rio Earth Summit, in which there was a dedicated UN organization in the name of United Nations Framework Convention Climate Change, UNFCCC, and this is working against the climate change. And there was a research institute or research organization called as Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is working along with the collaboration of several research scholars. So what is important is IPCC highlighted the limit of 1 degree centigrade or 1.5 degree centigrade. It is the signal or the limit for the climate change. Beyond 1.5 degrees, world is going to witness several challenges. In our recordings, we discussed in a couple of weeks back a Lancet report mentioning that climate change inducing diseases. Even WHO also focusing about water stressed areas and the lack of nutrition food is one of the reasons. Lancet in its journal observed that climate change is promoting the tropical seasonal diseases at an aggressive level. Now at this point of time, we have to understand this article from the background. That is, others cited that developed countries are going to emit a lot, and emissions are rising. And developing countries are aspirational with the youth population and want to create infrastructure for the needs of the economy. So there is two different dilemmas here. Number one is developed countries want to emit more to maintain their economic standards and to revive from the COVID period, whereas developing countries want to develop infrastructure to meet their aspirations. Now at this point of time, others stated one USA environmentalist observation, and he said that we are not only going to degrade the environment, we are also become the environment aggressors. So that is, the pollutions are now causing at a higher level, affecting the human beings. Further, it is also interesting that the climate negotiations to counter these challenges began from 1990s, and right now there is a debate over three different issues. Number one is about common but different responsibilities, which is evolved in 2015 to limit the 1.5 degrees centigrade. Developed countries pledged to do more. Developed countries committed to do more to prevent the climate change. In other words, in the Paris summit, developed countries agreed to give $100 billion to support developing countries and also enabled technology transfer for the developing countries. Further, we have to understand that net zero emissions is also talk of the climate politics. So net zero emissions, by reaching net zero emissions by 2050 is the goal, and Glasgow summit also highlighted need of the climate goals. It is well known fact that India committed by 2070 we will become net zero emission country. That is the plan of India. And climate negotiations also includes carbon budgeting, which means carbon is limited to the country at a certain level. For example, a country like USA, it can be say only 50% of global carbon budget, which means beyond 50% USA should not emit. However, in the last 27 COP meetings in Sharm el-Sheikh, environmental minister quoted that most of the developed countries emitting beyond the carbon budget because of their COVID revival plans. That is a cause of concern also. Now, apart from the other quoted climate justice, what is climate justice? Climate justice is a favorite topic for the Indian environmental negotiations. So climate justice is a topic which was popularized by a Sweden environmentalist Greta Thunberg, and it means that it is a concept addressing the fair sharing, equal distribution of burdens of climate change and its mitigation and its responsibilities. That is, there should be equal share among the countries to justify the climate change, to address the climate change. Now, the other suggested with the 5 strategies. One is global agenda should be there and financing should be done, and he promoted the idea of life strategy. What is life strategy? Life strategy is a concept put forward by Indian government and lifestyle for environment, which means that reducing our consumption, judicial use of resources, and maintaining sustainable spirit in using the economic resources and even the environmental resources. Next article talks about COVID pandemic, food and socializing. So this article is not very much important. We have few observations here. The first and most important observation is a German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer mentioned that life is a pendulum which moves between pain and boredom. Nowadays, we are witnessing more pain because of layoffs and even slowdown in economy. However, the newspaper article was based on the report given by Center for Monitoring Indian Economics and its report on household survey. So this survey highlights that during lockdown period, even after COVID lockdown period, India is witnessing a simple but a severe problem. The problem is massive layoffs, which is interrupting the food supply chains. So the other quoted a report, economic concept called as Engel's law. What is Engel's law? So Engel's law, which is given by Ernest Engel in 1857, and it is also famous as Engel's curve. It stated that as the income increases, people will try to spend more on the luxury items like health, education, recreational activities, and they will try to spend low on the food or nutritious things. This is very interesting. However, in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, Engel's law was quoted as, and I quote, when the family income increases, spending for the food decreases, and spending for the health, education, recreational activities maybe increases. That's the reason we can conclude Engel's curve or Engel's law stating that share of the food expenditure will be raised as income fall. So there is, when income is falling, the food expenditure will rise. As income is rising, food expenditure will low. So this is how the Engel's curve is explained. So learning from this Engel's law or Engel's curve, Center for Monitoring Indian Economics mentioned that right now the cost of food expenditure is rising along with the inflation in India, and the cost of socialization, that is investment on the private expenditure or external cost, is also rising. It is also witnessing the rural-urban divide, and government measures like providing ration under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, or it can be said that RBI policy of rising interest rates through Monetary Policy Committee, but not addressing the core of the concept, that is rising the supply chain. And you see very well that because of Ukraine-Russia war, fertilizer supply was disrupted. Supply of palm oil or edible oil was also disrupted. So that is how India is suffering. Points are well utilized in writing the current economic status. And apart from that, others quoted about lack of psychiatrists and rise in mental stress or anxiety from the Lancet report. It is also mentioned that even villages doesn't have the capacity of psychiatrists or village mental health facilities. So these are some important points where we can use in our current economic challenges to Indian such type of questions, or even essay also we can use these points. Next article, catching small fry is not enough, nab masterminds of drug smuggling. It is evident that India is located between two major drug suppliers countries. One is called as Golden Crescent, includes India, Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Golden Triangle, which includes Thailand, Laos and Cambodia. Now, India is witnessing inflow of drugs from the Bangladesh border and even from Pakistan to Punjab. If you recall, recently Indian women BSF contingent blasted a drone carrying 5 to 6 kgs of drugs. So what is interesting is at this hotspot or at this problem, now India conducted a summit or a meeting under the leadership of Finance Minister. So it was mentioned that India do have a dedicated organization to deal with this kind of cases. That is called as Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. It was dated back to the colonial history, in which it was worked as a central exchange and customs administration, mainly to collect revenue. Then after independence, it started to do some other activities. In the 1953, it was named as a Central Revenue Intelligence Bureau, charged with the responsibilities of anti-smuggling and anti-corruption in customs and central exchange organizations. It is well-known, interesting fact that Directorate of Revenue Intelligence is Apex Anti-Smuggling Agency of India, working under the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, which is under Ministry of Finance. Now, they will take the investigations and operations against the smuggling, and they will also deal with the smuggling of items like drugs, gold, diamonds, electronics, foreign currency and counterfeit currency. And this is well important information for our prelims point of view. Next article talking about elections, and its happens in Gujarat and in Himachal Pradesh and by-polls in some other districts like Uttar Pradesh. Now what is important is elections are very important. According to Abraham Lincoln, elections belongs to the people and it's their decision. He also mentioned that the ballot is stronger than the bullet. So let us hope the democracy will be strengthened by this kind of free and fair elections. Next article talks about panel shortlisting finalizing its report on OBC subcategorization. Now, OBC subcategorization is a topic which is in news from last few years. It is well known fact that Article 340 of Indian Constitution mentioned that President may appoint a commission to investigate the socially educationally backward classes within the Indian territory. Based on that Article 340, we have Kalelkar Commission in 1953 to identify the backward classes, SCs and STs. Then we have Mandal Commission in 1980, which proposed OBC reservations to 22%, OBC reservations to 27%. Later, 102nd Amendment, Constitutional Amendment put forward National Commission for Backward Classes, which was previously a statutory committee, now it is a constitutional body. And finally, Article 338B created National Commission for Backward Classes, and BCs was also associated with the Article 342, which I said that there is a provision to identify the socially educational backward classes by the President. Now, we are having subcategorization of BCs. What does it mean? It means that BCs are now subcategorized to find what is the criteria or parameters through which OBCs can get the reservations, and it is also working to get the details about the unequal distribution of benefits of reservations and to work out the scientific approach for the subcategorization within the OBCs. And this is going from last few years. The BC Commission, Subcategorization Commission was working from 2017 under the leadership of Justice G. Rohini, the BC Subcategorization Commission head. Now, further, it is also important that this is ongoing issue. Let us wait and watch for the final report, then we can discuss about it, what are the impacts of it. Article talks about President approves new crest of Indian Navy. So this article highlights that Indian Navy now adopted a new flag which consists of Indian style of representation, not like as the previous one. The previous one talks about its so-called includes elements of colonial, and in the way of decolonization, Indian government recently updated its flag, and now we have this new flag. A new flag consists of Indian designs, which includes Indian flag and also the Navy motto. Navy, it also consists of Navy motto, and in Navy motto it says that may the ocean god auspicious on us. That is Shano Vardaha. Shano Vardaha is the motto of Navy, which was also presented in the new flag. It also includes of Sachimeva Jaite also. Last article talks about PMI signals upbeat services overseas orders post revival. This article describes about the current economic trend, not very much important, but the important thing is the PMI report and its others. The Purchasing Manager Index is an economic indicator which is based on the trends of manufacturing and social and services, and this was primarily given by IHS Market Group, which is located in London. Apart from that, there are some other institutes involved in it: Institute of Supply Management and Singapore Institute of Purchasing and Material Management. Not very much important, but we can have an idea. It will give an idea about how the purchasing in India, in the economy is going, how the purchases are working in the economy. That's all for today. Thank you so much and Jai Hind.